Good morning, comic book fans. Welcome back to Ka-Pow Comics Best of 2023, and at number 8 we have Ribbon Queen. This is by Garth Ennis and Jason Burrow, and I don't have a copy of it because, again, we don't have any left in and it's not technically finished yet, so I don't have the trade paperback. And sometimes I'm going to put stuff in here where it's not finished yet just because I love exactly what's going on so far. And it is worth pointing out that, I'm guessing around about here, that the quality you're going to be getting in terms of both writing and art for pretty much all of the top 10 stuff is going to be pretty top tier kind of things. It will explain to a certain degree why I don't really get into a whole bunch of detail unless we are talking like an anthology where each different comic has a different artist like we did yesterday. In this one though we have got Jason Burrows, who is one of my favourite artists. He is somebody who, his name's on something, it makes me want to go and check it out more. He's recently, done this one, and then a couple of years ago now he did a Warren 40,000 comic book with Kieran Gillen, both of which were absolutely fantastic. He is an artist I genuinely admire. But in this particular instance, I wasn't totally taken in by his artwork when I first read it, because this is a really nasty, gory horror kind of comic book. It's the kind of thing which Jason Burrows does really, really well, but he also has a very distinct style. This is a style which involves both a mixture of very, very fine detail and also quite a heavy line. Now, I like this about his artwork. I think it particularly works well in the Warren 40,000 universe, where we do get like a certain level of technology where the detail in it is fantastic, but it is all still big, bold lines. In this one, it feels like there's a different inker working with them, and there is a certain more fineness to it. And I was a little bit put off, I've got to admit, because you get a certain idea of an artist in your head, and you think, okay, I know what to expect here. I know what I'm going to get. Like, you know Frank Miller's going to do certain things like, well, his characters have massive hands or whatever. But with Burrows, we expected that level of detail and his line quality. So for one of those things to change, I was a bit like, strange. But then we get to the detail of the horror, and it is brutally unsettling. It is a mixture of supernatural and guttural body horror, and the extra level of detail we got to show the fine workings of the damage done to the human form. All of a sudden, I was 100% back on board. No problem whatsoever. In fact, I love this artwork. It is spectacular. It shows off exactly the kind of gruesomeness that I want from Garth Ennis' Jason Burrows story. Now, that being said, the other reason why the quality of everything being top shelf, but me deciding which ones go where, and it does come down to a little bit of just my own personal preferences. This should be fairly clear to anyone who's followed my videos for a while, but I like talking about stuff that the comic book's about, not necessarily just the comic book. This is something which you've seen already, I think, in the best of the year, and repeatedly throughout my Comics in 5 Minutes reviews. And in this one, it is no different, because Garth Ennis is a creator I have loved pretty much since I started actually collecting comics, because I used to read them when I was a kid. I've said before on the channel, like, I got my first actual proper comic book when I was 11 years old, and my dad bought me Batman the Killing Joke. But I didn't start really collecting comics on a weekly, monthly basis until Garth Ennis was doing Preacher, and I also discovered his Hitman, and then a bunch of other stuff he was doing. I got so much of it, and I really got into it. I'm not saying everything he's done has been amazing. Dix has a certain charm to it, but then a Train Called Love left me severely wanting. But one thing I can absolutely say is he has grown as a creator in ways that I 100% admire. I think on the shelf somewhere, I don't know exactly if you'll be able to see it, I think maybe, where are we going? Yeah, here, this is The Boys. This is his 6-volume anthology of all the Boys comics he did, which I thoroughly enjoyed, even if it only really has a handful of jokes in it done over and over again. But what it also has in it is some fairly nasty transphobic shit. Ennis has accepted this, and he's worked to make himself better, so The Boys' final volume, Dear Becky, actually goes some way towards undoing some of the harm he's done. This is great. I think most creators can stand by their early work while also understanding that they need to be better. Neil Gaiman is another one who's constantly trying to be a better person with this regard. Whether you like his writing is up to you, but I think we can all agree that it's nice to see somebody who's trying to be progressive, maybe not understanding what it meant to be progressive due to privilege, and now realising the mistakes they've made and stepping up to try and correct them. So Garth Ennis has gone from knob jokes and it being funny when men bum other men, and yes, I'm using that phrasing particularly because it feels very, very Ennison to pronounce it that way, to use those words for it. He has grown quite considerably. He has always been centre-left politically, always. He is anti-war, anti-officer, but he doesn't quite mind individual soldiers. I think he understands that the people who make armies work aren't necessarily there because of glory. They're doing it because of a whole variety of social political reasons. He has got into the debate on the IRA on repeated occasions, but he always seems to come down on the leftist progressive side, which if he hadn't done, I don't think I'd have liked him quite so much. Even when I was a younger man and this wasn't hugely what my political stance was, it was still nice to have that representation. And as he's grown up, he has gone more in that direction, which is really, really nice to see. Excuse me, because Ribbon Queen is the most ACAB book I've seen Ennis ever do, and he has done some Punisher work. It is the most Me Too book I've seen anyone really do in quite some time, and it is spectacular to see that Ennis has been the one who's doing it. He calls out corruption, he calls out misogyny, he calls out, effectively he's calling out rape culture, and unfortunately I don't have editing software still on this, but I'm just recording it on my phone, so I can't really beep that word out, which means YouTube might get a bit annoyed about this video. But it's true, he calls these things out. He calls out people who, men who think they have a right to women's bodies, not just in the most extreme way, but even in that very, very popular bit of misogynistic behaviour, which is, you look better if you smiled. He calls out everything from the ground up, and how systems are set in place, usually, well, almost exclusively patriarchal systems set in place, and why they're damaging not just to women, although way, way more to women, but also to society as a whole, and how this plays out at various levels. And if that was just it, that'd be me really enjoying a bit of Garth Ennis, because I think he's the kind of writer who can do something like this, especially after the stuff he's done, to show this kind of growth in character. But on top of that, it's also a fantastically well-realised horror. He has created worlds and characters in these worlds and his own mythology for things. I think the most recent issue, he actually did go back and actually do some historical world building. All of this leading to some of the most gloriously gory artwork I've seen with the help of Jason Burrows. These two people working together are just fantastic. I answered a question on Threads recently about which two, which artist and writer are, when you see them together, you just know you're going to get something good. And I mentioned other people. I didn't think to do Ennis and Burrows, but now I'm reviewing this and I'm like, man, yeah. It used to be Ennis and Dylan until, some news about Dylan. But I think Burrows is now the guy I would expect to do Ennis's work to the highest level possible, and to add so much to the stories he's telling, to really grab hold of all the brutal elements he wants to put in there, all the horror stories he wants to tell, but to make it vibrant and leap off the page in a way that is still very, very unsettling. Honestly, when I started reading Ribbon Queen, I was expecting this to be a fun bit of Garth Ennis. He can write things which are still funny, still a wicked sense of humour, and even when he goes to dark places, he can still put edges to things and make it so you feel like you're laughing when you really, really shouldn't. I wasn't expecting this level of political savvy in his writing, and this extra level of detail that Burrows has got because of these slightly different inking techniques. I honestly love this comic book, and I cannot wait to see how it plays out. And yes, I'm putting it in when it's not particularly finished. I'm going to do this for a couple of other series this year. I do apologise if that's going to be an issue, but some stuff just impresses me straight off the bat and then just gets better and better with every issue. This is one of those stories. That's it for me for this one. I'd say I'm not really going to be doing much of the Comics in 5 Minutes for the rest of the year, especially not because at the moment I've got an absolutely terrible cold, and to be honest, I'm very impressed I managed to get through this entire thing without sneezing into the camera at least once. So I'm going to call it there before it gets even worse. Until I see you again, look after each other, everyone. Stay safe. Bye.